Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. On this episode, we will learn how to make this adorable variation on some fun netting technique. And you will learn how to make this fantastical bracelet utilizing those techniques. This is part of my Crystal Lilies set, which I had featured in my holiday creation update. It's kind of the side part, the long chain that I have created to go along with this piece. If you'd like to learn how to make the entire piece, there are links down below to my Skillshare classes where you can find this design. I'm also working on the PDF for this as well if that is more your speed, but be sure to check out my tutorial shop down below if it's there. This is definitely a beginner tutorial, so feel free to try it out no matter your skill level. This utilizes very few bead shapes, so be sure to use whatever's in your stash. You can do a lot with this technique in order to make it customized and personal to you. You can use different size bead shapes, you can use different bead shapes, shaped bead shapes. You can keep it open, like I have here with the gaps in the center, or you can fill them up with a nice nifty spine. I used another set of 4mm beads on top of this, but you can use something like spikes, something more decorative, something fancy, just play around. This is a really good transitionary technique that you can use to build your skill arsenal, and I hope you have fun and play along with me. And if you create this piece, be sure to share your creations at our Facebook group at Creations with Lessons with Odin. Links down below, and I would love to see what you do. For this project, you will need a buttload of beads, and I'm not gonna get into specifics. I will get into some math, because it ultimately depends on what beads you are using. Because, for example, I am using fire polish 4mm rounds, and if you use something like Bicones or round pearls, your results may vary, as well as the size 11 seed beads that you put in between, depending on what manufacturer you use. Not all size 11 beads are the same. So, to give you an example of what I'm doing, I have used a total of 68 of these beads for the length of my bracelet, and that will cover 2 rounds. I'm doing one single color all the way around. Now, you can use other variations, you can make patterns with it, you can do pairs of 2, sets of 3, sets of 4, whatever strikes your fancy. You could also use 3mm beads, and you will probably need to use at least a quarter more of it, so probably around the 80 range, to make sure you got everything covered there. Or if you alternate between 3mm and 4mm, that might screw your answers up briefly as well, but ultimately, that is what you need. Basically, most things come in strands of 100, so if you buy a full strand, you're probably covered. But my bracelet was 7.5 inches or so. I kind of fudged it around a little bit, but anyway, you will need a base bead of some form and some variety of colors. I am also using these to mark my ends, so I'm using 2 additional beads, just so that I know what is going on when I string things around. I'm also going to be doing something fancy and show you a variation. Since there's a blank spot inside, I'm going to try to thread through another bead on top, and I haven't decided if I'm going to be using these, or if I'm going to be using these, which are spike beads. Because there's a lot of room in that gap, you can have some fun pursing things together and making a little dimension. So apart from your base beads, you will also need 2 colors of size 15 seed beads, and 1 color size 11 seed bead that matches your pointy bits on your size 15. Like for example, this one, I've used size 11 seed beads in between the points here, and they're silver. So I'm going to be using red for the points, and so my red is going to match. You will also need a clasp of some form if you want to turn it into a bracelet, and your needle and thread. I'm using Nymo, but I would absolutely recommend something really stiff and rigid because this is going to be a heavier bracelet. So probably like a 6 to 8 pound test, because you're still going to pass through some of these beads quite a few times. So not too heavy. Heavy, but not too heavy. Nice, happy medium. There. Anyway, Let us get started! So we're gonna start off by threading on pretty much all of our beads. What I have is a stop bead here, and then I've started with my midway marker on one side, and then I've threaded on an alternating pattern of size 11 seed beads and my base beads all the way over till I reach my halfway point. Here. Put on another midway marker, threaded on the rest of my beads, and ended at a size 11 seed bead. So to show you that up closer, I have my stop bead here. I have my midway marker, followed by a seed bead, 4mm seed bead, continuing that all the way down. So this is about 7.5 inches, then I've got another midway marker, 7.5 inches, and I've ended at a size 11 seed bead. Now, what we are going to do is one giant right angle weave base. We're basically going to pass back through every single one of these beads. I'm skipping my stop bead because we don't want that in there. But every single one of these beads, gonna pass through them all so that we form a giant loop. Just keep doing that for a billion years. Like so, and now I have my tail and my working threads meeting. I'm gonna actually pull out my stop bead just because I don't want to deal with it anymore. And now I'm going to secure this by taking my tail end, working thread, and tying an overhand knot. I'm gonna save that for later and use it on my clasp, even though I recommend adding a new thread for clasps just because if it breaks, you only have to replace the clasp. Now I'm going to start to cinch everything together and work on the center spine first, just because I don't want things flapping around, because right now it looks like a giant necklace. But what we're going to do is, if you take the two midway beads, hold them and pull them together, that's basically what you got to form your bracelet with. So I'm going to take my thread and pass through the midway point and the size 11 seed bead next over. Pull that through just so that we are where we need to be. I'm going to add 3 size 15 seed beads. This is the other color, so we'll call this color B. 1 size 11, 3 size 15 seed beads, and jump to the next size 11 seed bead down our path, and we'll form a sort of loop picot type thing. Once more, add 3 size 15s, 1 size 11, 3 size 15s, jump over the next bead on the row to form another picot. We're going to continue that all the way down until we reach the midway point on the other side. Now you can also do this with size 15 seed beads as the center instead of size 11s. That's only a matter of personal preference. I do it so it's easier for me to pay attention to what exactly belongs in the center. But ultimately, the technique's the same, and it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So, you can use 11s or you can use 15s, whatever you feel comfortable with. So this is what we have when we've done the entire half of our piece. Don't really worry too much about orientation of the little flappy bits just yet. We're going to fix it in the next step. So, I have stopped by coming out of the size 11 seed bead in between, or right next to, the midway point. To continue our next steps, I'm going to go through the midway bead and the next size 11 seed bead. I'm going to add on 3 size 15 seed beads and then fold over and pass through the size 11 seed bead that is attached to the first flap on the opposite side. So that we begin to form a cross pattern, we have 3 branches of a cross in the center. I'm going to add on 3 more size 15 seed beads and pass through the next size 11 seed bead on our opposite side that we started from. When we pull tight, we will have completed the cross. So once more, I'm going to add 3 size 15 seed beads, pick up the size 11 seed bead on the next flap over, so that we start to form our shape. Add on 3 more size 15 seed beads, and move over to the next size 11 seed bead on our bare spaces. Keep doing that all the way down until you've zipped everything together and cinched everything closed. You may also need to add thread to your piece, so when you are doing so, when you're adding half hitch knots, avoid putting knots in the base threads here where the 4mm are. Try to put it in so that your half hitch knots are in between the threads and the strands, the little crosses in between, because we're not really going to travel too far or too much into those threads. And that is what we end up with after this. So, everything's all cinched together. You can have a little bit of fun with restructuring if you so choose to do so. The bottom ends here kind of make a nice parallel bridge, but they're also separate. And if you want to make this top section pop up a bit more, you can always stitch these two together, but we're not going to go that route this time. We're going to do a little bit of restructuring to make these gaps in the center a little bit more pointed. So right now I'm coming out of the size 11 seed bead that's next to our midway marker. I'm going to travel through the midway marker and the size 11 seed bead, like so. Then I'm going to pass up through the size 15 seed beads. I'm going to skip over the next size 11 seed bead, and then just go immediately down the next set of size 15 seed beads. And I'm going to push my thread underneath that size 11 seed bead so that it pops the bead underneath the thread. It's kind of the same technique we used in order to make the points pop up here. We're just moving it towards the center. So from here, I'm just going to go and immediately pass through the next set of size 15 seed beads. You can go through that size 11 if you want to, but that's just adding extra thread in places we don't really need it. So I'm just going to go right immediately there. Once again, skipping over the size 11 seed bead and passing down through the next set of size 15 seed beads. I'm going to tuck my thread underneath the size 11 seed bead so that it pops up and your thread skips over underneath. You're going to repeat that all the way down until you've completed the side. And once you have one side finished, we're going to turn our thread. So I'm coming out of the 3 size 15 seed beads right here. I'm going to move to the size 11 bead underneath, then through our midway bead and the size 11 next over, up the opposite side of size 15 seed beads, and then just repeat the process. So I'm going to skip over the size 11 in the center and just move immediately down the next set of size 15 beads. And you can kind of see we have a much nicer, cleaner shape in the center compared to something on this side, where we have one of the points sticking out and this one kind of warping and curving. So I'm going to repeat it once more. Go up the next set of size 15 beads, skip over that size 11 bead, and go immediately down the next set of size 15s. Repeat that all the way down until you've completed your row. And with that, everything should be nicely structured and pointed. We're just going to work on our final stages, which is wrapping around the outer edges of our line. So I am coming out of the 3/15s. I'm just going to pass my thread and turn it around, going through our midway bead and the size 11 bead next over. Gonna add 3 size 15s A, 3 size 15s B, and 3 size 15s A, and go through the size 11 seed bead that is next to the 4mm bead, so that we wrap the opposite side like that. You're gonna repeat that all the way down. And once you've got one side complete, you're just gonna wrap around. So I'm coming from the size 11 seed bead, I'm gonna go through our midway bead and the next size 11, and then do the same thing on the opposite side. Once you have flaps on both sides, we're going to work on making it prettier. So I'm at the end of my bracelet, so I'm going to go through the midway point and the size 11 bead again. Then we're going to do the same thing we did with the X's. We're going to go up one path of size 15 seed beads. We're going to skip over the one in the center and go immediately down. And we'll kind of pry our thread over so that the center bead pops up. You're going to repeat that on all of the beads on both sides. So go all the way down one side, turn around at your midway point, and then do the other side. Now that you have your flaps all nice and pointy on both sides, you're going to want to decide what you want to do with it next. You can leave it as is with the center open like that, or we can try to put something in the center between the size 11 seed beads. So, I am currently coming out of my last set of size 15 seed beads here. I'm going to pass through the next size 11 bead, which is right across from our midway bead. Then I'm going to pass through the center, through those size 15 seed beads, and set up to fill the center by passing through that size 11 seed bead there. Next, I'm going to add one size 15, another color fire polish, one size 15, and then I'm going to pass through the next size 11 seed bead in the center, so that we end up with that 4mm nestled in the gap. Now you might be able to omit the size 15s if you want a tighter hold in the center, or you can also try this with some spike beads. These are some 5x8mm spikes. Pass through the next size 11 bead on the side. Orient it until it's pointed up. And you're just going to do that all the way down until you've closed all the gaps. If you're using spikes, you might want to turn around and reinforce so that it doesn't flop around, and so that it always stays upright. And this is more or less what you will get once you have finished enclosing the center spaces. Now we're going to attach our clasp. So we're going to go all the way down until we're threaded through our midway bead. And I'm just going to thread on 3 seed beads, my clasp, 3 seed beads, and pass back through our midway bead, so that we form a picot like that. And I'm going to reinforce this and end my threads. And there you have your finished bracelet. Ooh, it gets kind of curly, but once you put it on, it will straighten out nicely. So yes, this is just a fun little technique that is actually pretty basic. It just takes a lot of thread and a little bit of finagling, but you can totally customize it however you like. You can use other shapes of beads, other sizes of beads, and have loads of fun. I think that will do it from me. Be sure, if you would like to learn how to make the full piece, check me out on Skillshare. There will be links down below to my Skillshare channel where this piece and other delightful projects will be available for you. If you guys try this out, be sure to come and follow us at our Facebook group at Creations from Lessons with Odin, and share what you make because I'd love to see your color combinations. Be sure to like up this video and subscribe if you want to see more bullshit from me. Check out my other jewelry shenanigans here on YouTube. Check out my other shenanigans because we do a lot of fun things here. As well as my sci-fi blog is down below if you're into that sort of thing. Let me know what other tutorials you'd like to see, what other techniques, what other bead shapes you'd like to see me use and or review. Comment down below. Let your voices be heard. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and of course, if there's anything I need to be trying out right now, feel free to let me know down below. And I will see you next time.